Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Constitutional Conservative. As we all know, the war in Ukraine rages on with horrible images of the conflict coming out of the region. Plus, we see an enormous amount of propaganda coming from both sides, as well as coming from the White House and our own media here at home. And biolabs or no biolabs, why can't our own government just be honest with us? Plus, people are being called treasonous just for asking questions. I have that and so much more. But before we get into it, I want to remind you all to make sure you're subscribed to my channel on Rumble. It's free. And that way, whenever a new episode is released, you'll be sent a notification. And also, hit that like button. Or if you are watching on Rumble, be sure to give us a rumble. And as always, make sure you share this episode. Because as we all know, the corporate media continues to lie to all of us. Let's make sure the truth gets out there. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have so much going on right now. Not only in this country, but as we all know, we have the dire situation in Ukraine. But what really worries me is the amount of division beginning to form in the Republican Party. I'm actually seeing people on the right beginning to use the same tactics as leftist lowlifes who want to do nothing but silence people they disagree with. Or even silence people just for having an opinion or posing a question. You see, on the right, we have a huge umbrella, and that's why we're seeing such a huge increase of working class Americans beginning to support the conservative movement. Not all of us are always going to agree on things, but one thing we must all agree on is our big R God-given rights. One of which is our right to speak, our right to have an opinion. We don't all have to agree with the person's opinions, but they have the right to have them and speak them. Now, we have rhino clowns like Mitt Romney, who says that Tulsi Gabbard committed treason. All she did was ask a question and repeated what the U.S. government had already confirmed. And yet this clown, who marched with an anti-American Marxist BLM group in 2020, and who dodged going to the Vietnam War by getting 4 deferments, he's going to call Tulsi Gabbard, a former congresswoman and a current officer in the Army National Guard, treasonous. Now, look, I don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard's politics or much of what she has to say, but I do believe she has the right to speak. And I do believe in this situation, she's actually right. And all she did was ask a question. She asked about biolabs that the U.S. government admitted existed. Yet that unleashed the propagandists and so-called fact-checkers.
I think it's important to point out here that this is not a matter of disagreement or holding a dissenting view. This is about facts, and this is about the truth. So while Senator Romney and all these different talking heads in the mainstream media are regurgitating Hillary Clinton's slanderous talking points, the facts remain. Number one is they're accusing me of saying that somehow there are bioweapons labs in Ukraine. I've said no such thing at any point. I have said that there are biolabs in Ukraine that have received U.S. support that contain dangerous pathogens, that if those labs are breached, then we in the world are facing a potential future of pandemics, that this is a dangerous crisis that needs to be addressed immediately. These pathogens need to be destroyed.
You know, you would think that after we had the situation with COVID and its links to a biolab, people would be more worried about a situation like this. But not the leftist lunatics in the corporate media or the warmongering neocons on the right. No, instead they continue to use the same tactics that people like Vladimir Putin use in Russia to silence dissent. And lately, you can't even ask questions in this country, especially if you're questioning the policies of the Biden regime. And it's not just Mittens Romney saying this. We have a bunch of bloviating windbags on the left saying that Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard should be investigated and thrown in jail.
They used to arrest people for doing stuff like this. If they thought you were colluding with a Russian agent, if they thought you were putting out information or taking information and handing over to Russia.
Yeah. These clowns use these types of tactics because that's what leftists do. They don't believe in our Constitution, and they want you to be silenced because they can't argue their policies, because they're terrible. And they seem to believe in this kind of neo-McCarthyism. They don't believe that you have a right to speak because they don't agree with what you say. And every time someone they disagree with says something, they unleash their totalitarian diatribes. Then we have the people who say, how can you support Ukraine? They have a corrupt government. That's your excuse, that their government is corrupt. What government isn't corrupt? You know, you can support the people of Ukraine without supporting their government. Vladimir Putin does not have the right to invade a sovereign nation unprovoked. And that's the bottom line. And deliberately targeting civilians is not only disgusting, it's a war crime. And to the people who say that Putin isn't targeting civilians, you're not a serious person. Not only have Russian forces bombed countless civilian targets, they also attacked a children's hospital, killing dozens. And they also attacked a theater that was clearly marked where you could see from the sky that children were taking shelter inside. This picture clearly shows, spelled out in Russian, that children were inside the building. Now, tell me, how does this theater have military significance where Russian forces felt the need to bomb the shit out of it? It's a disgrace. Now, I've heard so many ridiculous reasons and excuses for Vladimir Putin. And I can't believe that there are people who actually believe these pathetic things. And I'm not going to go into them because they're just so bizarre. But it amazes me that people are actually spewing this nonsense. And I don't care who you are. If you think that innocent civilians being targeted is okay because Vladimir Putin is fighting some new world order, you're an idiot. Then we have the people who have never seen war. They sit on their cushy couch at home and run their mouth on social media while hiding behind a device screen. They're pathetic. How easy it is for you to sit there thousands of miles away and spin your conspiracy theories while innocent people are dying. But hey, if that's what you believe, that's your right to believe it, no matter how idiotic it is. Now, it's not just people making excuses for Putin, because the propaganda is happening on both sides. Now, with all of that being said, we have to not allow ourselves to fall into the trap of the tactics that the leftist lunatics use. Because we're not always going to agree on everything, but one key thing we must all agree on is America's founding principles and our God-given rights. So, as far as these biolabs go, what do we know? We know that in a hearing, Victoria Nuland told the U.S. Senate that the American government is concerned about biological research facilities falling into Russian hands. Here's what she said.
Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian troops, Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces.
So right there, she admits that they exist. We also know that Barack Obama helped negotiate a deal to build a level 3 biosafety lab in Odessa, Ukraine. In a story from the National Pulse by Natalie Winters, she reported a deleted web article recovered by the National Pulse reveals that former President Barack Obama spearheaded an agreement leading to the construction of biolabs handling, quote-unquote, especially dangerous pathogens in Ukraine. So again, tell me, how can asking a question about these labs falling into Russian hands make you a Putin apologist, or that it's some grand conspiracy theory. Labs, by the way, that are admitted to have been studying dangerous pathogens. There is ample amount of evidence that these labs do exist, and the US government has admitted as much. And here we have leftist lunatics and neocons on the right pushing the lie that they don't exist, and then lambasting those who are concerned and actually asking questions. You know, this is just another attempt by the DC swamp and corporate media hacks to try and cover up the truth of what is really going on. And this is nothing new. Just like the Hunter Biden laptop story that the New York Times finally admits is true. Even after the New York Post, who originally reported this, had their account suspended by the tech tyrants at Twitter, and numerous people, including myself, got it suspended on Facebook just for sharing the story. And if you don't think that all of this is related, you need to get your head examined. But that's a story for another day. I hope people like Tucker Carlson, Tulsi Gabbard, Dan Bongino, Natalie Winters, Raheem Kassam, and others continue to ask questions and provide the truth. Because the more they tell us not to ask questions and throw their so-called fact checkers at us, the more it shows that they're trying to hide something. So, next I want to dig into how the Biden regime continues to use Vladimir Putin and the war in Ukraine as an excuse for why our economy is tanking. Now, some of you may have heard that the Biden White House is now using TikTok stars to spread their propaganda.
President Biden getting more desperate after failing to gaslight the American people into thinking that Putin is behind higher gas prices. Now, he's resorting to teenage TikTok stars to push his price hike propaganda.
I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said. Russia is one of the top 3 producers of oil, and it is actually their #1 revenue source. Now, with Putin starting this horrific fight between Ukraine and Russia, nobody wants to work with him and do international trade.
I don't even know what to say to this. You know, because the economy wasn't already seeing historic inflation well before the invasion, which includes skyrocketing fuel prices, along with inflation at 7.9%, which is a 40-year high. You know, because none of this has anything to do with the destructive policies that Biden had put forth on day one. But it's gotten so bad that the Biden regime had to resort to TikTok stars in order to spread their propaganda. And as if his policies aren't bad enough, Biden had the nerve to say that the American people, well, we just don't get it. That government spending does not lead to inflation.
Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I love, the Republicans saying it's Biden's gas pipeline. So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
This man truly thinks the American people are stupid. He is actually trying to convince people that government spending does not lead to inflation. I have never seen anything like this. Anyone who took a basic economics class knows that extreme government spending leads to inflation. If you keep printing money, it leads to more money, chasing less goods. The amount of money injected into the economy outpaces the production of goods. That is the definition of inflation. Meanwhile, old Joe continues to tell us that his policies are working. That we are all just too stupid to understand that Sleepy Joe himself has made everything wonderful for us.
Never forget what we've accomplished together so far. And by the way, the American people just trying to stay above water don't understand this. You tell them what the American Recovery Act was, they look at you like, what are you talking about?
I honestly can't believe that they think this is a winning strategy. You would have to be an idiot to not realize that all of this has been happening well before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. But this administration doesn't seem to care. they are willing to flat out lie to the American people if it helps them get their agenda done. We have leaders in this country who are committed to policies that will bankrupt Americans. And they know these policies in the long run will only hurt the working class. And all roads lead to Joe Biden's green energy policies. And he's trying to use the oil companies as a scapegoat while he does this. But in reality, Joe Biden is willing to purchase energy from foreign adversaries and terrorist countries rather than produce it here at home, which would even create tens of thousands of more jobs and bring down the cost of oil and natural gas. And this BS that Peppermint Patty spews from the White House podium about how there wouldn't be any immediate effects if tomorrow we began to, once again, produce our own energy is ridiculous. Anyone who knows this industry knows that oil is priced in the futures market, and increasing the supply will keep prices from spiking even more. And another thing, she continues to cite these 9,000 permits that are already out there.
There are 9,000 approved oil leases that the oil companies are not tapping into currently, so I would ask them that question.
But what she doesn't tell you is that some of those are already tapped out or don't have any oil to begin with. And even the ones that do have oil, they are so overregulated by the government that it actually prevents them from using the permits. Because each time you put a drill into the ground, you have to get another permit. So those 9,000 permits that she's talking about is just for the land, not actually to drill. And this process can take up to 10 years to get approved. And right now the Biden regime is not approving any of these permits to actually drill. This administration is so disingenuous. It's disgusting. Since day one, after inheriting energy independence, they have been at war with the energy industry by overregulating and choking off financing. This is all intentional, and yet they continue to lie about it as if the American people don't know that it's their destructive policies that are contributing to this. Hey, I have an idea. Instead of blaming everyone and everything else other than your own policies, why don't you take a look inward and start taking care of things here at home instead of sending billions of dollars overseas? Look, if you want to send weapons to Ukraine, that's one thing. But sending them billions in cash is just plain dumb. Why don't you stop spending money overseas and start fixing things here at home? I mean, is that too much to ask? The Biden regime is not concerned whatsoever with issues here at home, including our own southern border where millions of people continue to stream across. It is blatantly obvious that Joe Biden and his cronies are willing to make the American people suffer as long as they get their agenda done. But while all of this is going on, it's becoming more obvious that Joe Biden is not cognitively sound. Listen here as he refers to Kamala Harris as the First Lady and announced that the First Lady's husband has COVID.
Stage, but that's enough too. Look at the stage. But there's been a little change in the arrangement of who's on the stage because of the First Lady's husband contracting COVID.
The First Lady's husband is you, Joe. And as if that wasn't bad enough. And then we have this.
How many times have you heard, I'll bet everybody knows somebody somewhere along the line, that in an intimate relationship, what happened was the guy takes a revealing picture of his naked friend or whatever in a compromising position, and then literally, in a sense, blackmails or mortifies that person. Sends it out, put it online.
We are continuing to see bizarre episodes like this more and more every day. And this is happening when the world could be on the brink of World War III. It seems every decision that this inept administration makes has been at the detriment of this nation. It is becoming blatantly obvious that Biden has a hard time finding words and is unable to follow simple instruction. We have a commander-in-chief who is just not up to the task. And he seems unable to fulfill his responsibilities as a leader. And it's more clear than ever that the American people have no confidence in Joe Biden's leadership abilities. But what we need to have confidence in is our founding principles and each other. And what do you think our enemies see? It's obvious that they're using this as an opportunity to watch the United States and our response, then test the abilities of this man in the Oval Office. It was Daniel Webster who said, "Hold on, my friends, to the Constitution and to the Republic for which it stands. Miracles do not cluster, and what has happened once in 6,000 years may not happen again. Hold on to the Constitution, because if the American Constitution should fail, there will be anarchy throughout the world." Hey everyone, I want to thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, or if you're watching on Rumble, give us a rumble. Please head over to my Patreon page and consider making a donation to help keep the Constitutional Conservative content free. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel, rumble.com/The Constitutional Conservative. Or if you prefer just the audio version, check us out on SoundCloud. And leave us a comment. Let me know what you think about this week's topics. If you'd like to follow the Constitutional Conservative on social media, we're on most social media platforms, including Getter. And make sure you share this video, and share others like it. Share videos of other conservatives so people can see the truth about what's happening in this country. And always remember, someone once said, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." This is the Constitutional Conservative. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.